that we've had with Cortex that was highlighted through that presentation. First and foremost, that this project, since inception, has contributed close to $300 million in the form of contracts with women and minority-owned businesses, $174 million to MBEs, $124 million to WBEs, and also understanding that this TIF district that has been developed, while it is activating land and the sites, it's also creating a more mixed income, mixed use environment and neighborhood that we hope to strive for every neighborhood within the city of St. Louis to achieve. So again, I'm very appreciative of Cortex and their leadership, but also the consistency of their development to produce the highest and best use of these parcels, as well, to ensure that the projects that are being created or promoting quality jobs for our city and for our region, contributing continuously in new tax revenue and new operating revenue for our public schools, as well as our taxing districts. So this has had a positive impact on those taxing districts, as well as the overall entertainment and now residential space that are coming to the Cortex district in order to build a better city for everyone. So I just wanted to make sure that that was noted as well, as we move forward in the conversation. Again, really appreciate everyone's time.
Okay, I thank you very much. What I'd like to do now is to go to our committee. And
Chairwoman, Zach Wills from SLDC. We got reps from the Comptroller's office to speak on this also.
oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yes.
Let's go to them first. The Comptroller's office, please present.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Alderwoman Davis, Mr. Clerk, and to all of the meeting participants. We have another speaker on behalf of the Comptroller, Mr. Charles Salisbury, before I provide the comments from the Comptroller. So I would yield to Mr. Salisbury first.
Okay, Mr. Salisbury, would you please allow me to swear you in?
Yes, please.
Sir, do you confirm that you will tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Please move forward.
Thank you. Greetings to this group. It's a pleasure to be able to participate and to share some ideas with you all. Let me say at the very beginning that the Comptroller's office and the Comptroller herself recognize that Cortex is a nonprofit economic development engine in the city of St. Louis. And it's also the creator of effective strategic alliances with very prominent members like Wash U and St. Louis U and others. And that strategic alliance has created a situation where where economic development can be realized even more fruitfully because of the contributions of all of those entities. The bill before you represents a furtherance of the existing programs to enliven and revitalize a vital area in the city. And it is with a delight that I will share with you Comptroller Green's feeling that endorsement and support for this very special project. And thank you to Cortex for continuing to help revitalize the city, and for the team that has analyzed the projects. And we're all looking forward, and Comptroller is looking forward to having not only RPA 6 move forward, but also hearing more about RPA 4 and 8, so that we can see how those pieces will fall into place to create this economic revitalization that we're talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Kenya, you going to close out
Yes,
for the
ma'am.
Comptroller?
Yes, ma'am, I will. Thank you, Alderwoman Davis. Inclusive of the remarks from Mr. Charles Salisbury. On behalf of Comptroller Darlene Green, we definitely thank our partner, Cortex, for the footprint that they have placed in the city of St. Louis. The revenues that has been generated from previous projects and the new revenues that will be generated from the future projects. And therefore, the comptroller provides 100% support to move forward board bills 114 and 115 and the RPAs under these board bills. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your input. Okay. I think we can move forward now for committee input. Okay, so committee members, I'd like to have, let's start with, is Alderman Cohen with us yet?
Yes, Chairwoman.
All right, sir. Go right ahead, please, if you have any questions.
I don't have a ton of questions. I'm pretty familiar with the project and certainly with Cortex. So I still appreciate the overview from SLDC, the comptroller, and members of the Cortex community with respect to updates. I know that there's a chapter 353 over in the Cortex area. Does this board bill specifically, is that within the footprint of the 353?
No.
I was asking SLDC, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that.
That's okay. No, it is not, Alderman Cohen.
Okay. As you're aware, Director Richardson, I have some long-standing issues with the 353s, and that we've only utilized them in the Central Corridor and have not, leaned into those tools in Southeast City and North St. Louis as much as we probably should. But if this isn't within the footprint of the 353, I feel more comfortable providing support to the project. So, I do want to and I think it's been mentioned already before, commend the work of, Cortex and, SLDC and the Alderwoman from the 17th Ward, and trying to, make these projects a little bit more palatable, for the city as a whole. And also, Cortex, I think is a model for how these, types of organizations can function within our city. There's, some others on the periphery of, or within the Central Corridor that aren't necessarily as mindful of some of the design, environmental, inclusion efforts that we would like to see as a city. So, definitely want to just extend my kudos to Sam and June and others who are working on those efforts within the Cortex district. So I don't have anything further. I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Alderman Kotar.
No questions, Madam Chair. I appreciate the thorough explanation by Cortex and SLDC.
All right, thank you, sir. Alderwoman Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have questions. I just have a comment. I want to thank Cortex because after I met with them and we kind of came to some realities, and I think what happens with a lot of corporations that are out here, they don't toot their horn or market the work that they do. And so that was one of the suggestions that I made to Cortex, and I applaud them because they're not only making sure SLPS is getting the tax dollars, but they're also partnering with them with their students. So they took in consideration some of the recommendations that were made to say, you the best kept secret, and you need to let people know the work that you're actually doing. And so I think a lot of times, as Alderman Cohn says, what they're doing, a lot of corporations need to take the lead and follow that, because the only way we're going to rebuild our city is for us to partner with each other and not against each other. So thank you all very much.
All right. Thank you, Alderwoman Boyd. Is Alderman Narayan with us?
Yes, Chairwoman.
Okay.
I just want to thank SLDC for the presentation, and also thank the Alderwoman from the 17th for pushing on this project on the affordable housing front. It was a thorough explanation, and I have no questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Alderwoman Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair and other members. I really don't have any questions at this time. I just appreciate the overview of the project that was presented. And glad that this project is about to manifest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alderwoman Keys.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair and other members. And thank you to all of the organizations who are here this morning. This project sounds so exciting, and congratulations to 17th Ward Alderwoman Tina Peel. And that is the end of my comments. And spirit forward, Godspeed.
Thank you. Alderwoman Walker.
Good morning, Madam Chair. No questions, no comments. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to refrain from any comments at this moment because I have guest speakers and I wanted to get them in as well. Madam Clerk, where am I at here? Madam Clerk.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have two speakers or one?
We have, well, we already heard from June
No,
McAllister.
these are people who are for or against.
Oh,
this
I'm
board
so
bill.
sorry. I am so sorry. I have two speakers that are against in
Okay.
opposition. That's Jerry
right.
Conley and Ray Cummings.
Okay. So, gentlemen, could you open your mic and I'll swear you in? Do you affirm that you will tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Ray Cummings.
Is Mr. Connolly with us?
I do not see Mr. Conley.
I know he was on earlier.
Hey.
Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead and let Mr. Cummings make his statement, and if Mr. Conley comes back, we can have him. Go right ahead, sir. Mr. Cummings, we can't hear you. You're muted.
I'm
There
sorry.
you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairperson Davis and members of the committee for allowing me to speak with you this morning. I applaud all the things that Cortex has been doing over there. First of all, I want everybody to know I don't know the difference between R2, D2, or any of that stuff. I don't understand it. You guys are the experts and y'all understand that. But a couple of things I do understand. I do understand that the St. Louis Public Schools depends on property taxes in order to operate. I know they talked about $9 million, but when I look at what's going on, I look at the other numbers, I just don't think that's enough. I heard some conversations about some kind of arrangement that they had with the St. Louis Public Schools. It's my understanding from talking to board members that my good friend Sam and the folks over at Cortex, they did talk with the folks over at the school district, but I don't think they had no signed agreements on what it was, maybe some goals or something like that. I mean, when we operate with this bill, with the Alder people and Cortex, there are certain things that everybody agrees to do that have numbers on them. They're not just goals and stipulations and things like that. And I think that with all this going on, with all of the not-for-profits that are over there, I just believe that they can do more for the St. Louis Public Schools. And I've talked to Sam about it. I've tried to talk to Neil. I haven't been able to get in touch with him. But as a taxpayer and a voter, Cortex people, unless they live in the cities, they don't vote. And the voters have to feel as though that their fairness is being adequately adjudicated by our elected officials. So no, I'm not here to be a wet blanket or anything. I'm just here to say I would urge the committee to urge Cortex to try to come up with a firm commitment or whatever. Just like I'm old enough that I've been around long enough that I've been hearing about all these deals that they do, whether it's St. Louis Center or Union Station, and they talk about all these good paying jobs they're going to have. And we go back and look at the historical record for all of these kinds of ways in which we've tried to redevelop the city. A lot of those jobs that end up being not what they were presented by those folks. So I'm just asking the committee to ask the Cortex, like they got firm figures on everything else, put some firm figures down for the St. Louis Public Schools, and that $9 million to somebody like me that's got a 3-bedroom bungalow in South St. Louis sounds like a lot of money. But I pay my full share. And every time I add something onto my house or whatever, they raise my assessment, even if I don't add nothing. And I don't mind paying it because I think that nothing can operate unless we all pay our fair share. So that's all I'm asking. And thank you for allowing me to appear before you. And I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cummings. I wanted to see if Jerry Connolly is available now.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm available.
Okay,
And,
sir.
you can go ahead and swear me in.
All right, sir. Do you affirm that you will tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, sir. Go right ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to focus my comments initially on the section of the legislation regarding the 2 RPAs, 4 and 8, kind of in the northern and eastern section of the area. And there was an opportunity, I believe, at the TIF Commission to really separate out their recommendations to you as a legislative body and not extend these 2 RPAs, because I believe there's a development opportunity there without TIF support. For example, the property that's on the Clede, directly across from the post office there, there's a large vacant lot. It's within that RPA 8. And the idea that public subsidy is needed to do development there, I don't know why it hasn't happened yet, but I really don't see any reason why a private developer couldn't come in, do a project there without any support. And this is going to, basically extend the duration of the TIF substantially. And I just don't think that's a prudent decision for the city, whether it's the schools, for the general revenue. How are we supporting infrastructure there if we keep keep diverting the property taxes into the TIF? A correction to statement earlier, through the St. Louis Innovation District, there is a Chapter 353 created in the early 2000s, and that district substantially overlaps with the TIF district. And there are a couple of early projects that preceded the Cortex TIF that the Innovation District / Cortex 353 Corporation assigned 20-year tax abatements to. And although it preceded the TIF, basically it's still authorized through the Cortex entity. So can someone please address that from SLDC staff and from Cortex? Because there's a detailed information on the Cortex website. You've got to dig for it, but there's a long article that kind of explains the whole history, and it lays out this 353 very clearly. And Alderman Cohen kind of asked about that earlier, and I really want you to circle back to that and explain it. The other item that hasn't come up today that did get discussed at the TIF Commission is the role of the city's Industrial Development Authority and how bonds are issued for that, which appears to me it's almost like a refinancing tool whereby revenues can be applied anywhere in the district. And that IDA process does not go through the Board of Aldermen. Any hearings that are conducted for the IDA are conducted over the phone. It's a very opaque process. And if the board and SLDC want to be truly transparent, I think we're all owed an explanation of how that system works. And I don't have a copy of it available right now, but every year the city submits data to the state auditor's office regarding all their TIFs. And the most recent report for Cortex, the job production is nowhere near the figures that have been shown on the slides. So if somebody from SLDC or Cortex can kind of explain why the differential, I mean, I think it was 7,000 jobs were cited this morning, and I believe less than 2,000 show on that most recent report from the state auditor. So I think we're missing some really important metrics. But I think my strongest point is extending RPA 4 and 8 is just a very poor decision.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, and I hope these questions can get addressed.
Okay, so I don't have any comments or questions. I want to go back to Alderwoman Peel to close out.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the HUD's committee. I would like to close and ask for the favorable consideration to pass this bill with a do pass recommendation with some conditions. I was elected here as an alderperson, as a legislator, to make sure to protect the city and the voters and all the taxing districts. And one of the things that we do not have in these board bills is that we have schedules and exhibits that are not complete. And I've asked for several weeks to have these exhibits and schedules to be completed. And what I would ask now is that if they're not able to be completed, there could be at least draft information presented regarding these schedules and exhibits in these board bills that are indicated. The exhibits are Exhibit C to RPA 6 parcel development, Exhibit D to RPA 6 parcel development, and Schedule 9D to the RPA 6 parcel development. I have been requesting this information. I haven't received it. I would at least like to have draft information for these exhibits presented to us, because I believe that it isn't in our best interest as a city, as taxpayers, to be voting on board bills that are incomplete. And so I would like this to go through with a do pass recommendation, as I mentioned, with the condition that these exhibits and schedules that I've been requesting information for, that I could get drafts and we could get drafts as a city so we can make better decisions as we pass these board bills through.
Alderwoman Peel, I would like to ask if you would allow President Richardson to, because I heard in the presentation, those items that you mentioned will be created and they have to go back to the TIF Commission, and it will have to come back with another bill because it doesn't exist now. What you're asking for doesn't exist, but it will be created. I heard that in 2 presentations. So I'm going to ask the question of President Richardson. Where are we on that? Okay.
Yes, so I'll definitely answer to the point of what's going back to the TIF commission is RPAs 4 and 8. But the exhibits themselves for RPA 6 will be produced at the financial closing, and once final details or identified, which is a condition of this TIF actually being passed. So we have kind of a chicken and an egg situation here where we're requesting information that can't be finalized or have full details until we receive a final approval on the TIFs. And then also being able to then share that information with their financial lenders in order to finalize those schedules and exhibits. So I would like to pass it over to the Cortex team, Sam, and your council to be able to speak directly to those exhibits and when they will be made available to the city and to the full board of aldermen.
Sam, do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead, Dan. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yep. Hi, folks. Dan Burke with Armstrong Teasdale Council for Cortex. And so I can run through those, and Keely, feel free to jump in if I misstate, but the exhibits that Alderwoman Peel is referring to are exhibits to an exhibit. So the redevelopment agreement is a master redevelopment agreement that Cortex has with the city as the master developer. Cortex then partners with subdevelopers and does what's called a parcel development agreement for individual projects. Cortex remains the master developer and the gatekeeper and the controller. But in a project like this, the parcel development agreement gets approved as to form by the city as an exhibit to the redevelopment agreement. So these are exhibits to that agreement between Cortex and Keely, to which the city is not a party, but obviously, has an interest. The exhibit C is project plans, which we want those to be as detailed and final as they can. Keely needs to rebid the project, needs to finalize plans once they know they're approved, which they don't know yet. And so the concept of this is that the PDA gets approved and it has to be in that form. And then the parties finalize the exhibits to it when they execute the agreement, when the plans are able to be finalized. Exhibit D is a budget and schedule. A general budget was, presented previously to the TIF commission, and that's part of the basis for the grading. And so there has been a budget, circulated previously, and that's one of the main things that really has to be rebid and finalized because construction costs keep going up, and without a definite start date, they can't produce a final budget. And obviously schedule, it's the same answer, that they need an approval before they can set a schedule. And then the last item was Schedule 9B. That's an additional protection that Cortex has been able to extract in negotiations with the subdeveloper that basically says they won't appeal property taxes at a certain level. That's an above and beyond protection that Cortex extracted to try to ensure that the TIF revenues are protected and insured, and make sure this project delivers on what is being promised. That's not typically part of a TIF agreement. And so again, we want to finalize that with the subdeveloper at an appropriate time once approvals are known and timelines are known and values are known, and the agreement can be executed. But it is an above and beyond protection that we're getting there. So I hope that answers questions.
Yeah, and as it relates to this being an incomplete board bill, I would just like to say, past precedent, the information that Alderwoman Peel has requested has not been required for TIF agreements historically. And we have passed and approved TIFs based on the information that has been provided to date. This information also was provided to the full TIF commission based on the information, and it was approved. So again, this information can be provided once financing is in place and once they have some agreed partnership with the city. And as a party to that agreement, we will have information and make sure that it's being transparently communicated to SLDC, the TIF Commission, and the Board of Aldermen once those final exhibits to an exhibit is completed. But to date, I believe we have a complete board bill and also have the information that has historically been provided by all developers for TIF agreements or included within this board bill that is being presented today. So that's all my statements.
Okay, so I wanted to make sure that we do know that this is the first step in order to continue the process so that all of those other items can be generated. And most especially to get the financing in place, because without this, they will not even look at attempting to agree to any kind of financing. And then all those other schedules, bidding and all of that can take place. And you will provide that to the TIF Commission as well. So I don't want to leave this with the public having some misunderstanding that someone is trying to either not give information or hide information. So Alderwoman Peel, has this been clarified more for you? That it will be coming?
At this point in time, what I see and feel we need to do is to make sure that we're holding everybody accountable. And what I am requesting in terms of these exhibits that are blank, it does not need to be complete information, but there needs to be at least draft information. Right now, these pages are blank. There's no information. And that we should have the ability to have some draft information to be provided to see a skeletal sketch of what is going on in these exhibits. I am clueless looking at blank pages. I understand about past precedent. We often have past precedent. You know, putting in and some of the positives regarding moving forward in terms of this Cortex bill and this TIF is that we're going to be getting $250,000 is going to be provided to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. That has never happened before. We could say, well, this should not be happening because this was not done in past. This wasn't past precedent. We shouldn't be using that as I feel, as an answer to why this information cannot at least be given in draft format. Sometimes past precedent was not working well. And that is why we are able to be more equitable here in doing these development agreements and getting $250,000 to be contributed to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, getting $1.8 million contributed to the Equitable Development contribution, getting in this particular board bills, we're going to be getting 60% AMI housing, inclusionary housing. This has not been done. These are great things. And it's not that we should say, well, we didn't do this in the past. No, we're trying to make things better. We're trying to make us more accountable to the city, to the people of the city, the taxpayers, to the voters. And that is what I'm trying to do with these particular schedules and exhibits that are blank. And so, again, I would like to move forward these bills with a due pass recommendation, with the condition of having some draft information on what should be in these schedules and in these exhibits. I also want to just bring up what Mr. Connolly said in terms of some of his questions that, and the public's questions and being answered. Again, this comes down to, I am trying to stand up for the voters that elected me, to stand up for them, and also to stand up for the citizens and making sure that we are doing our fiduciary responsibility. And having these exhibits and schedules blank is not a way in which we should be making, it's hard to make sound decisions. And again, I understand you don't have the complete details, but I have not been given any details. And at least that could be provided, is some detail. And so that is what I have been requesting, so that we all know as citizens of St. Louis, taxpayers, to make the decisions we should be making.
Alderwoman Peel, I thank you for that. I see I have a hand up on the committee. Alderman Coder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'm just looking for some clarity. We don't have any ability under our rules to put conditions on our passage. So are we going to recommend a do pass recommendation here and move these out? I'm not aware of any, conditions we can put beyond pass, do not pass, or without recommendation.
Well, I was going to get to that part of it when I asked for a motion. But what I was trying to do is to get an understanding of getting information that is not accurate information that will be used in the process is really not that valuable. And that's what I was trying to get to. When we get to that point, as the president of SLDC indicated, they will bring all the factual information back to the TIF Commission and to the alder woman. And it's better to have that than just put something on a piece of paper just because. So I will accept the alderwoman's closing, and we shall move forward. Okay. Thank you.
That's fine by me. Thank you for the clarification.
All right. Alderwoman Peel, I wanted to make sure you were complete with your closing.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. It seems that, I'm just going to talk regarding, it might not be complete information, but there must have been information produced to be able to, get to this point in terms of creating these board bills that things have been sketched out. And I don't know why that information is not available for us to view.
Now that information was sent to us and to you from 2016 forward.
I am going back to, again, in terms of these schedules and exhibits, and, having at least draft information available for us to view. It doesn't seem too difficult to have that draft information when all of this, we're making these reports and calculations. I know that has to have had to be in, what I will say, the soup in terms of to come to having these board bills presented today.
Okay, so maybe it would be helpful if the raw data that was used to rank this project in order to move forward Maybe if they could make that available, would that help? What happened here? Alderwoman Peel?
Yeah,
Okay, would that help?
well, I will look into, I will,
Because you really can't make a recommendation to the statement that you made. That's really not a part of, you know, approving a bill. We can't put conditions on it.
well, then I will ask for the favorable consideration to pass this bill with a due pass recommendation.
I thank you so much. The chair will accept a motion to approve Board Bill 114 with a due pass recommendation based on the suggestion of the sponsor.
I move that we adopt Board Bill 114 with a due pass recommendation.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved. Okay, was second by Alderman Cone. It's been moved in second.
And
Madam
Narayan.
Clerk. Oh, it was Narayan. Okay, I'm sorry. Madam Clerk, you have that, and would you please call the roll?
Alderman Cone,
Pass.
Alderman Kotar,
Aye.
Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Narayan,
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans,
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys,
Aye.
Alderwoman Walker,
Aye.
Chair Davis,
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
No.
I have 7 aye votes.
Okay. So it's been moved to adopt Board Bill 114 with a due pass recommendation to the full board. Alderwoman Peel, would you like to move forward now after our clerk reads the preamble to Board Bill 115?
Board Bill number 115, introduced by Alderwoman Tina Peel, an ordinance adopting a second amended and restated TIF redevelopment plan, approving redevelopment projects for redevelopment project areas 4, 6, and 8 of the St. Louis Innovation District TIF redevelopment area, adopting tax increment financing within redevelopment project areas 4, 6, and 8, all as described in the second amended and restated St. Louis Innovation District Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Plan, establishing the RPA 4 account, RPA 6 account, and the RPA 8 account of the St. Louis Innovation District Special Allocation Fund, establishing the city's strategic infrastructure for economic growth fund, authorizing certain actions by certain officials of the city and containing a severability clause.
All right, thank you very much. Alderwoman Peel.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the HUD's committee. I would like to approve Board Bill 115, RPA 4, 6, and 8, to move forward with a due pass recommendation.
Okay, did you have any presenters for this?
I think SLDC would like to present on this particular board bill, and I know that there's other people who want to.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Richardson, would you like to move forward?
Yes, I'll pass it over to our VP of Economic Development Incentives, Mr. Zach Wilson, who will give an overview of this project as well as a quick clarification on Cortex 353 as well. So go ahead, Zach, please.
Correct. First off, the correction on chapter 353 for Cortex. There is a chapter 353 of Cortex that's layered over underneath the TIF, but there's no powers, no tax abatement, any of those sort of things in any of these projects, just to be clear on that.
Yeah.
This one, we kind of addressed most of this information in the presentation from Cortex and our presentation. This is basically just extending the 3 RPAs out, or activating them, kind of. But the 2 RPAs would be coming back to the TIF Commission. So I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but this is, we've had 2 PowerPoints that address this whole, all the projects within this area. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Zach, for that clarification and that quick overview. Is anyone from the Cortex team would like to provide any additional information as it relates to this board bill?
Thanks, Mr. President. I have nothing further to add than what was presented.
Thank you. We'll pass it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers for or against Board Bill 115?
I have one speaker. Ray Cummings is in opposition of Board Bill 115.
Okay. Mr. Cummings? Mr. Cummings, are you still with us? His mic is off and his mic is off, so I can't tell. It looks like his video is still there though.
Now his video is not. Let me see if I can shoot him a message. Mr. Cummings is not responding. Oh, there he is. Okay, there he is.
Mr. Cummings, we are on Board Bill 115, and you are okay to go ahead and speak on it. You've been sworn in.
Thank you. My comments are pretty much the same. I am an advocate 100% for the St. Louis Public School. And I know from attending some of the TIF hearings and things like that, that everybody gets represented and people talk for everyone, but nobody speaks for the taxpayer or for the St. Louis Public Schools. Once again, I don't know R2 from D2. I don't profess to know anything about all of those different kinds of things. All I know is that these deals come from the developers. And there's a little back and forth conversations or whatever. But at the end of it all, I truly believe that they can do more. And I'm just asking for them to dig a little deeper. And I'm just asking this committee to say, you know, this thing's going to be out there for more than a decade, probably before it's revisited or anything. And I'm just saying, I think that the St. Louis Public Schools could just get a little better deal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Let me quickly, President Richardson, does the public school still have a representative on the TIF Commission?
Yes, they do.
Okay, I just want to be sure. I know I used to represent them when I was on the school board, and I wanted to make sure we still had that. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
We've also been engaged with them separately as well as Cortex in regards to this project and TIF in particular. So this.
Madam Chairman, may I add something to that? The St. Louis Pub, we know how the Robert's Rules of Order work. And we also know that just having a member on that committee, and they can't stop anything. The bulk of the money comes from the school. And this whole notion that just having a representative on the committee, that makes everything okay. They can't stop anything. All they can do is say, oh, well, I don't agree with it. So I don't think that representative of them being able to truly be heard. That's why we believe that the legislation probably needs to be changed so that whoever's giving up the most on these tips, they get to be able to have a greater say-so in what's happening. The St. Louis Public Schools can't say yay or nay on any of this stuff. All we can do is say, please remember us. Please be fair. But there's nothing that you can do.
Okay, thank you. And I don't
Thank you,
normally allow
Alderman.
people to come back and converse,
Well,
but
I
I
appreciate
thank you
it.
for your comments.
I appreciate it. Thank you very
All
much.
right. So President Richardson, I am going to ask that as we continue to improve the communications with our public about the processes of St. Louis Development Corporation, that we also include more detailed information so that the public knows who is sitting there when decisions are being made and whether or not they choose to have any type of input that is upon them. I know I stopped a number of projects when I was sitting there. And Cortex is the first one who can say they know well when they first came on the scene. I held it up for 6 months almost. So I know that if people have a concern, they voice it. And I know that if everybody sitting at that table are all representatives of taxing districts, and they always support each other. And so at the end of the day, we do have an inclusive process. And I want to make sure that the public knows that, because sometimes they don't get all the information. And I know that, and I normally wouldn't say all this, but when I was at the legislative session that the public schools gave, the budget director and the superintendent and the president and the vice president of the board talked about their understanding of TIF projects, their understanding of how they should have more input and will have more input. They also talked about they liked what was happening at SLDC because you were partnering more in considerations of how projects would move forward. But what they made very clear was that the budget of the St. Louis Public Schools has greatly improved over the years. And that's mainly because of the development that had been done, and it has grown to its full potential and its deposit to the St. Louis Public Schools. And when we talked about the dollar amounts that were there, when we had 42,000 students, we didn't have the budget reserve that the St. Louis Public Schools has now. And a lot of that comes from many of the decisions that have been made on behalf of providing additional dollars coming to the school district. So I don't want people to get this a total misunderstanding of everything. And I did not intend to say all of this, but it needs to be said. All information needs to be told, but we need to market everything so that the public has all information and they can make decisions for themselves. And I thank you all for that. I'd like to move back to Alderwoman Peel, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the HUD committee. I ask for a favorable consideration to pass this board bill with a due pass.
Thank you. The chair will, oh, wait a minute. Alderman Cone, I see your hand up.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I don't believe we took questions from the committee with respect to this bill.
We didn't. Well, you know, I appreciate you for keeping me on track. So let's start. Alderman Cone, you're the first one. Go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to provide clarification as well. SLDC clarified that this is within the Chapter 353 of the Cortex 353.
That is not active. It hasn't been for years.
It is active. It's not, these board bills are not directly tied to the incentives that are proffered by the 353. It is an active 353. But I do want to make sure that I'm clear and I'm on the record that I've multiple times requested, not just from the current administration, but previous administrations, for 353s down in the Dutchtown area specifically, for the redevelopment of Cleveland High School, and have been told, repeatedly, that we're not able to do that, and for a variety of reasons. It changes, it evolves. I am emphatically opposed to, any board bills that come before that are within a 353 area, until, we're able to be equitable and consistent with how we treat these development tools in other neighborhoods outside of the central corridor. I met with June and Sam over at Cortex, and shared some concerns that I had with respect to the even-handedness that the city should be playing with respect to these development tools. And I certainly don't want my vote to be reflective of the work that they're doing over at Cortex. Again, I think that they do a better job than most at trying to kind of live that vision. But I still have to vote, in respect of my constituency and being able to bring, these same types of opportunities to Southeast City and also North St. Louis. This has been a big challenge in trying to get these types of tools in other parts of the city. And, they can be designed so that they're more transparent, that they're more equitable, that they're more engaging. And, instead of being told flatly no, I think we should be more creative in terms of how we are able to utilize these tools in other parts of the city. And so I just want to clarify, I am voting no on these because they are in the Chapter 353 area for Cortex. It's not that I'm opposed to the 353 or even the work that Cortex is doing. It's because we're not being equitable in terms of how we're deploying these tools across our city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Kotar.
No questions.
Thank you. Alderwoman Boyd.
No questions.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Alderman Narayan.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Evans.
No questions at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Alderwoman Keys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions.
Okay. And Alderwoman Walker.
No questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. So now that I'm back on track, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of Board Bill 115.
I move that we adopt Board Bill 115 with a due pass recommendation.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Previous
roll.
Who did previous roll? 25.
Okay, I heard a second. And who did the previous row?
I think I said it first, but
Oh.
Jack, the alderman of the 7th and the 25th both.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so we've moved and a second for approval, Board Bill 115 with a due pass recommendation. And we are indicating it with the previous row. And I thank you all for that. Alderwoman Peel, thank you very much. And for all of the work that has been done on supporting this project, and most especially for not only the past work and partnership with Cortex and SLDC and the St. Louis Public Schools, but for the future endeavors that will take place, which I'm sure will continue to be new and innovative as we move forward. Thank you very much. Next, we have Board Bill 108. Alderwoman Ingracia.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Madam Chair, did you want the clerk to read the preamble, or am I okay to move forward?
We'll have her read it for you, please.
Board Bill number 108, introduced by Alderwoman Christina Gracia and Alderwoman Marlene Davis. An ordinance approving a redevelopment plan dated June 28, 2022 for the 2011-21-25 Locust Street and 2106-2128 Washington Boulevard area in the city of St. Louis, after finding that the area is blighted as defined in section 99.320 of the revised statutes of Missouri. 2016 as amended, the statute being section 99.300 to 99.715 inclusive. Finding that there should be available up to a 10-year tax abatement based on 90% of the assessed value of the incremental improvements, and pledging cooperation of the Board of Aldermen.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman Ingracia, please move forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the clerk just mentioned, this board bill would approve up to 10 years at 90% of a tax abatement for 5 parcels in both the 6th and 19th wards. Some of the spaces are currently vacant lots, so that would be infill construction. And then a few of them are buildings, that one of which is vacant, one of which is partially vacant. All of this area has been sort of sitting, not really doing anything meaningful for the city for a very long time. I was really excited to work with Brian Pratt on this project. This is the first project I've worked with him in his new role. And he proactively brought affordable housing as a part of the offer for the work that they're going to be doing in this area. So there's a total of 62 new affordable housing and workforce housing units in this development project. 33 of those units are at 60% AMI, 29% are at 80% AMI. And then for the 2011 Locust project, it's an exciting project that is new to St. Louis. It's mass timber construction, which is highly sustainable and going to be a noteworthy piece of architecture here in the city of St. Louis. Due to the cost and some of the sustainability mechanisms in that, there is no affordable housing being offered, but the developer will be making a $250,000 contribution to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I have Brian Pratt here with the developer and then representatives from SLDC. So Madam Chair, I'll leave it up to you on how you want to move forward. I'm happy to answer questions whenever committee members have them as well.
So let's have our SLDC presentation first, and then we'll go to the developer.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I'll pass it over to our VP of Economic Development Incentives, Mr. Zach Wilson, for the presentation.
Thank you, President Richardson. Give me 1 second. All right, we're very excited about this project. Brian Pratt has came to us several months ago, I would say, six months to a year at least, laid out a vision for this area, which was predominantly vacant buildings and vacant lots that were temporary as parking lots for the construction of the stadium. What we did here is score the project as a whole, all 5 phases and group them together. So like the Alderwoman said, It's 434 market rate apartments, 29 would be at 80% AMI, 33 at 60% AMI. Again, 32,000 square feet of retail, 31,000 square feet of office space. And the parcel along Washington would have a parking garage that would help kind of feed all the other phases. Since all the women kind of went through this went over already. The average, when we combine all 5 phases, basically the abatement comes out at 10 years at 80%. Each phase actually is a different amount of abatement. So I believe that the tower would be 10 years at 75. Some of the smaller buildings would be 10 years at 90. Because with the affordable housing type units, we need to have a larger gap on those projects. We are anticipating 188 full-time jobs in the area with an average salary of $60,000. With the total hard cost of 180, we expect minority firms to get $43 million worth of contracts, and women-owned companies get 19.8 million. We've got Jake here to go over the model. The score is 4.5, 4 out of 5. Jake, are you there?
I am here. So as Zach kind of mentioned, this scores really well in our model. The strategic land use here, especially mixed use, which again is kind of that high threshold for properties in the central corridor, but taken collectively, this is projected to generate close to $5.5 million over 10 years for the city, and about 14 million over 20, and 2.7 over 10 years for the school district, increasing to 16 over 20 once that abatement kind of burns off. Just a little bit more context in how we modeled this one, because it was a little complicated. We weighted the abatement by the development cost. So as Zach mentioned, there's a 75% abatement that we modeled for the tower because that is the majority of where the development cost goes. That weighs more heavily in the average. So you have really big 75% abatements, some smaller 90% abatements, and it works out to about 80% overall. If you look at each of these projects individually, the scores kind of vary a bit. The affordable housing component doesn't score quite as well, partially because those rents are below market. It's a historic building, so it's kind of inefficient to rehab. And then the component with the garage is serving obviously more than just that building, the whole thing. So we thought it was wisest to kind of look at this collectively, and it scores very well. If there are any other questions, I would be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Is that all for your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the developers, and if you guys would open your mics, I'm going to swear you in collectively. Do you affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Brian Pratt.
Anybody else with you?
Just me today.
Get out of here. Okay. All right, Brian, move forward.
Yeah, thank you to Alderwoman Gracia, Alderwoman Davis for their engagement, and SLDC team and the committee today. I've prepared a presentation. We've seen some of this already, so I'll move quickly and be happy to take questions upon completion. So from a context standpoint, this is the contiguous area in downtown West. As indicated, we've got a lot of vacant lots and a handful of vacant buildings and one partially vacant building in the area. We often look to existing plans for the neighborhood to get direction on our development plan and guidance. In this case, there's a relatively recent plan from December of 2022 that was adopted by the Planning Commission called Design Downtown STL plan, and it involved over 2,000 residents and stakeholders. Just some key facts, I'll hit the highlights. 80% of the street frontages were qualified as unfavorable in that plan. Population density is lower. There's a desire to see more sustainability. Obviously, safety is a big issue for the downtown area, and getting rid of empty lots and surface parking lots because these are viewed as empty and unsafe. From a land use standpoint, that plan highlights this as a mixed use residential area. We're kind of squarely in the middle of this orange land use map with the proposed development area. And then again, some strategies that came out of there were build new housing, underutilized properties need to be built with a range of apartments of all sizes, creating shared parking facilities, looking at both affordability and encouraging workforce housing along with market rate and encouraging a broader set of economic activities in downtown. So from our master plan standpoint, we've got 5 phases. Our costs are pushing $240 million across those right now as we're in some challenging environment from a cost standpoint. We'll have a unit mix of residential, parking, retail and commercial square footage, and those are still being fine-tuned. We have a mix of market, affordable workforce. We've got much needed commercial restaurant retail spaces to activate street level. We'll have some structured parking here, which is absolutely necessary to unlock the potential of these parking areas, and some smaller mid-size scale office space to capture future interest. These are the phases, as we're calling them, sort of going east. Building number 1 is on this vacant lot on the other map. Then we've got 2, 3, which are existing buildings, 4, and 5. So project number 1 is the proposed mass tower, 22 stories over a 7th Street concrete podium. We've got, somewhere in the order of closer to 280 units at this point, some first floor retail, commercial, an 8th floor amenity. This will have a structured parking. That's where the podium's coming into play at roughly 350 plus spaces. What is mass timber? It's a new category wood product. It's wood, but like Legos, it's been described, has strong sustainable impacts with a low carbon alternative to concrete and steel. The building weighs 50% less, so it results in smaller and less carbon intensive foundations, and it can be constructed about 20% faster, so it saves down on a lot of trucking, et cetera, from traditional means. This is our consultant architect on this had our project scored, so this would, 3,000 metric tons of carbon would be stored in the wood. The North American forest can regenerate the wood that would go into this in 11 minutes. We'd avoid, close to 6,400 metric tons of CO2, and that's equivalent to taking about 1,800 cars off the road for a year, or energy for 797 homes in a year. So really exciting. This is technology, a very comparable project to this was the Ascent in Milwaukee, and we've engaged with that team to help us with the design. Phase 2 is an existing building. These are really two buildings that are conjoined over time. This was formerly the Lambert Building. It was built in 1891, expanded in 1902. Our proposal here is to do a historic renovation for creative and flexible office space. And we should have close to 100 to 125 employees in the building when complete. Project 3 is these 2 buildings, 2109 and 2115. Again, they are also joined internally, so we're viewing these as a singular project. This was these buildings were built in 1911 and 1902. We've got 44 units, a mix of studio 1, 2, and 3 beds. We're targeting a mix of affordable workforce. And we've got 15 basement parking spaces. Our ability to proceed with this is contingent on a historic tax credit application along with phase 2 as well. Phase 4 is a ground up construction. We're looking at 60 plus units, combination of 1 and 2 bedrooms. We would add some first floor retail, especially along the Locust Corridor, and project costs are in excess of $20 million. And we'll have roughly 10% of the units in here would be targeted for 60% AMI affordability. Project 5 is the 2100 block of Washington, and key here is the parking structure of about 400 spaces. This will help us park the projects 2, 3, and 4 that I previously did, as well as project 5, and provide some overflow parking for the neighborhood, which is much needed. We'll have another closer to 110 units of apartments, and about 10% of those would also be targeted to the 60% AMI. That's my very quick presentation, Chairwoman Davis. So happy to take any questions or at your discretion.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on these projects for or against?
I have, in opposition, I have 3 individuals, Daniel Pate, Jerry Conley, and Brittany Kiefer, or Kiefer.
Okay. And any speakers for?
No, I don't have any speakers for.
Okay, I just wanted to gauge where we are with time. I wanted to make sure that they have their full time as I go back to the Alderwoman. I wanted to make sure she didn't have anything else to add. Alderwoman, did you have anything else to add as far as giving a full understanding of the project?
No, I think between the 3 of us, we managed to provide a pretty comprehensive overview. I'm looking forward to hearing the testimony from the public and answering any questions you or the committee members might have.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the 3 persons who are speaking against the project to open your mics so that I can swear you in, please. Do you affirm to tell the truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes, I do. Dan Pate.
And Brittany Kiefer here. I do.
Thank you very much. And so the first person I think she read was Mr. Pate.
Hey, perfect. If I'm recognized, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Welcome
sir.
everybody to my, yeah, thank you. Welcome everybody to my basement. I appreciate the committee's time and everybody coming here. First off, thank you for putting affordable units in this project. That's something that's mixed income housing is desperately needed around this area, and I think helps the city as a whole. I have a couple concerns about it. In 2018, the city sold, I think, 2 or 3 of the parcels that are going to be included in this development for $650,000. And it looks like in 2021, AHM bought a lot of other parcels, it appears, for $7.75 million. So it looks like the parcels that were sold to Twain Financial, who may or may not be involved, they're still listed as an owner of those parcels on public record. So they might be a participant in this project. Got a smoking deal on those parcel sales. And taking a look at that possibly being below market, I'm kind of wondering what we can do about the abatement figures. It seems like the abatement figures on this one for 10 years are even over what's being offered in North City for a project right now. I'm just kind of wondering, you know, location wise, what's the goal? What's the long-term outcome that we're trying to get? And I really would ask for the evaluation that was done when the developer presented. They put part-time jobs having a salary of $42,239. And those part-time jobs, there were 50 of them proposed in the first presentation. A full-time job at $72,548, and there was 144 of those jobs. My question is, what measures are there in place to hold the developer accountable for producing those jobs at those salaries? Is there going to be every biannual review? Is there going to be a clawback feature if people don't get jobs at those salaries and we don't have that much job creation? Is there anything in the program that could be for SLPS graduates to get a preferential treatment for hiring, or a program where people can be trained on those types of jobs and then hired into, because those are fantastic salaries if we can actually do that. The biggest concern that I have is the fact that there was a recommendation given without an application by LCRA for abatement on this. It seems like there was a long time in between when the application was actually received and before that, the recommendation was given out for the abatement percentage. So the state auditor is no longer a Democrat, and I'm sure the conservative Republican who was elected as state auditor would be quite interested in applicate or recommendations issued without applications. So that might be something we want to take a look at. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Connolly?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thanks for the opportunity to speak today on Board Bill 108. I guess I'd like to just pick up from comments that Mr. Pate made towards the end of his testimony there. And I did tune in live back on June 28th when Mr. Pratt, speaking from London, where I grew up, zoomed in and gave a presentation to LCRA on this project, and he used some of the same slides. There's been some updated schematics, I guess, with the details on each phase of the project, but there was no financial analysis presented by SLDC at the time, by staff at the time. And so, the LCRA board has 4 members, one of whom seems to rarely attend. So 3 people voted in favor to recommend this project to the board. And following that meeting, like I do with some of the other projects, I sent in a sunshine request for the developer's application. And then, I'll email this to you because I got a list of the requests, what dates they were sent in. And, on the 3rd request, I finally got a document, responsive document, which was the application on behalf of AHM signed by Mr. Pratt. And that application was dated 16 weeks after that LCRA meeting. So in terms of, we can talk about economic justice and equitable development, but we're still advancing projects from SLDC's development boards to the Board of Aldermen without applications. And this isn't the first one. The Lighthouse project up on North Riverview, that application wasn't submitted until after it got first round approval from the Port Authority. So I think we got some kind of fundamental things. It doesn't seem like this committee really answers my questions unless somebody on the board brings it up afterwards. But what gives SLDC the authority? How is it statutory in the city's charter or elsewhere? How does it get the authority to make these recommendations to the board? Because I just find it very disturbing that it takes, close to 4 months after an initial approval before there's any paperwork whatsoever documenting the outline for the project. So, the meetings supposedly are going to be live streamed from the development boards. That needs to happen now. There's a 2.5-year archive of Zoom videos. They could all be posted, next week. And I think people would be somewhat astonished by the lack of scrutiny some of these projects receive at the development boards. So, while I think there are merits to the projects here, I just think our process is deeply flawed. And I'll bring it up again. I've said it before that we had 3 members of this aldermanic body indicted back in June. And I, at the time, called for, we need a forensic review of projects receiving incentives that are pending so that we don't have that risk of pay-to-play corruption and politicians and developers, exploiting a weak mechanism and poor oversight. So I really encourage the board and SLDC to sit down and look at this very, very closely. So that's really what I wanted to focus on, was the lack of transparency, and they just don't seem to be guardrails to protect the public interest. And we really need to tighten that up and do it, now. Because once these projects go through the development boards, I think we're all pretty well aware that it's very, very rare for the terms of the abatement to be tightened up as we go through the Board of Aldermen. I hope this project gets that level of scrutiny, but please pay attention to the process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Madam Clerk,
Yes, ma'am.
who was our last speaker? I think there were three. Who was the
That
last
would be
one?
Brittany Kiefer.
All right, Ms. Kiefer?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Much like some other people already mentioned, like I think it's really great that we are talking about affordable housing and a contribution to the Affordable Housing Fund. But in my review of the board bill, you know, I do see approval of these tax abatements, but I do not see like any actual discussion about the affordable housing. And I'm wondering at what point do we like put that language into the plan, and what is kind of holding to the developer to these claims going forward with the development of this project. I also watched the meeting with the LCRA board from June, and I think it was really interesting to say that like, who are the residents targeted for this project? And the developer said that out of town residents moving in. While I see like it important to grow our population and to grow all of these things, I think focusing on making housing affordable and accessible to people within the city should be an important priority for the committee and for the Board of Aldermen. And, you know, I think looking at it from this point, when we discuss that, like there are other incentives being planned, I'm just always very interested to know, you know, what are those further incentives that are, you know, if we have these plans and these ideas, what are the further incentives that are being planned? And if those are going to be addressed, how do we know what the overall public contribution is going to be to this project? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Alderwoman Ingrassia, I want to come back to you. Did you have any additional information you need to share at this point?
I don't, but I will say that I appreciate the comments from the public. I made notes on the questions you have, and I will work with the developer and SLDC to see if I can get some answers. One thing I guess I did want to mention to Brittany's point, a lot of these things that we talk about in committee do not get put in the board bills themselves, but get put into the redevelopment agreements. And that's something that I've worked on a number of projects, and I think other alderpersons have as well. And then SLDC is definitely the entity that's charged with ensuring that the developers are following through on what they've committed to do. And so I don't know if maybe Mr. Richardson or Zach Wilson might be willing to just let us know how that process looks internally at SLDC, maybe to give some of the members of the general public peace of mind.
That is great. Thank you for the opportunity, Alderwoman Ingrassia. And as spoken to, typically when we do initial blighting studies, it's to blight the area itself. And then for us to provide incentives up to a certain amount for that blighted area to ensure that we get the highest and best use of that asset that will contribute to the future taxing district's revenues for the city of St. Louis, and also that there is a public benefit that will be provided. So that's the initial round of review that's done through our development boards and then placed forward before the Board of Aldermen. After the Board of Aldermen then review that blighting study and the redevelopment plans overall, we then have to analyze the specific projects before we assign them as redevelopers of these various sites. And so, for example, on this project, we would be providing up to 10 years at 90% for the entire area. However, as each project comes before the LCRA board, we will conduct a full analysis on each individual project and award an incentive that is at or below that 10 years at 90% based on the public benefit that's provided. So there will be a full analysis and full scrutiny on every project and building that comes before the LCRA board. However, we do have a process to ensure that we're providing clear and transparent and efficiency to developers and to our city as we are evaluating these projects. So again, this was step one of outlining and conducting the blighting study. And then there will be additional scrutiny within the LCRA board for every one of these buildings to ensure that they are providing public benefit and awarding that incentive based on the public benefit that they provide, such as affordable housing and other improvements to infrastructure and walkability for our city to continue to move forward. So that information, again, will be provided in greater depth as the projects come to fruition, but this allows for the developer to have an understanding of the rules of engagement and have some preliminary approval, but that final approval and also the stipulations will be more well-defined in the redevelopment agreement once we assign the developer itself as the redeveloper of that area. I don't know if Zach, you have anything else to add, but I wanted to ensure to the public that SLDC is doing a thorough review of the sites to make them marketable to achieve their highest and best use for the future economic development growth of our city, as well as evaluating and providing public incentives for public benefit for each one of these projects and doing a thorough analysis. So I'll pass it over to Zach Wilson.
No, thank you, President. I hate following Neil because he usually hits it out of the park. No, to be upfront and honest with everyone, the blighting study and redevelopment plan comes first before anything else. And this blighting study and redevelopment plan would stay with these parcels for the next 10 to 15 years. Even if Brian Pratt does not build on these lots, we can find another developer who can come out behind them and do these projects or similar projects. So this is not tied to Brian Pratt. This is tied to these parcels. And that's how we see the redevelopment plans and blighting studies that we pass here at LCRA. We kind of market these plans to outside groups to get investment here in the city. So we love Brian. We want these projects to move forward, but if somehow reason this does not occur, these parcels have a marketability for future projects. To address other type of North City projects, we just passed multiple projects with 15 years of tax abatement for North City. Also, any type of LIHTC projects we get through LCRA gets 15 years of tax abatement. So we are very supportive of projects that produce for the city and produce affordable housing for the city. So we'll be happy. We get many sunshine requests, about one every 3 days from our friends. So we're very open and we're eager to share as much material as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes our statement. Again, appreciate the opportunity, Alderwoman Ingracia, to respond to the transparency of the process that we have in place at SLDC.
Okay. I think we can move on now to the committee. We've heard from our speakers, and I'll start with Alderman Cohen. Alderman Cohen, do you have any questions? Alderman Kotar, do you have any questions?
Yeah, could somebody from SLDC just speak to the point that was raised by the public about, I guess there was a lag between when this was first reviewed by LCRA and when the developer's application was received. Someone could just speak to that. That's my only question.
Yeah, so again, this is for the redevelopment of the area and blighting of the area, not just a particular application. And so we will be providing an analysis. We wanted to have that available because we have a potential project that's ready for development before this board. However, that is not always a requirement. What we're doing is really analyzing the area itself and potential redevelopment for the parcels, as Mr. Wilson spoke to. But we will be conducting, again, a full analysis based on the application that was provided by the proposed developer and present that before the LCRA board for each one of the projects individually, but prior to awarding the tax incentives. Again, this is just setting a bar, and we will not go above what the Board of Aldermen recommends for this site as it relates to tax abatement for the projects. So I hope that clarifies it, but Mr. Wilson, I'll let you speak to it as well because you reviewed the applications and was in communication with the developer through the process too.
No, Mr. Pratt came to us a while back and we agreed that the area was blighted and it needed investment. It was underutilized, it was vacant buildings, parking lots, things that need investment, doesn't bring much to the city. So we agreed that there is blight. So we did a blighting study and redevelopment plan back in about a few months ago. It lagged a while at the Planning Commission. While that was going on, Brian Pratt got more detailed information for each project and presented that to us. We scored those projects, and now we have a scorecard for the area. So the blighting study and redevelopment plan came first. Brian's more detailed numbers came later. This doesn't mean we're married to Brian for this area. He has to come after the board bill is passed. He has to come back to LCRA to be designated developer for this area. There's other steps. Also, there's other steps behind even after the redevelopment agreement. Minority compliance numbers have to be hit. Prevailing wages have to be hit. So I think people think as soon as this board bill gets passed, a tax abatement is activated. That is far from the truth. There's so many more hurdles after this that we have to cross. So I like to point that out. Minority compliance is a huge issue here we take very seriously, and prevailing wage also. So these are good paying quality jobs for residents of the city and also minority and women-owned businesses also. So that's a huge clawback we have in our regional agreements. We have additional clawbacks that will come more in each deals as we go forward. So be happy to answer any more questions, but this is just the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach, Neil. Nothing further, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, sir. Alderwoman Boyd.
I have no questions. I just hope that I can be like you all when I grow up and I have a project like this. So thank you all very much.
Well, I tell you that there is nothing that's going to stop us for the near future, and most especially because we have policy planning in place now and soon to have additional staff that will help us in the wards that will be on the ground working every day towards these processes. So let's look forward to the future.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Alderman Narayan.
And share a few moments with some things.
I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Alderwoman Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Keys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions at this time. Thank you.
All right. Alderwoman Walker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay. The few comments that I have, first of all, I'm excited about this. Most of you all don't know, but the Alderwoman Ingracia knows. these parcels have been looked at more than once. And that happens a lot in the development world. Someone may come, and that's why nothing is tied to a developer. It is about the land and or the building. And it's good to see something that is so inclusive as a project. It's dealing with environment. It's dealing with the most especially introducing new building materials to this city. All of them at SLD City and others know I'm a geek. I follow all that stuff. And I'm always sending them emails about what we can do different and new. So I'm excited about this. I hope we see this to the end. And I'm hoping that we can see more projects like this all over the city, not just in this one area. But aside from that, I'd like to go back to Alderwoman Ingracia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks again for the individuals, the developer and the members of SLDC who provided testimony for the questions from the committee and the general public. I will circle back with everyone to follow up on any loose ends to make sure that the questions that were asked are answered. And with that, I would close and ask for your favorable consideration on Board Bill 108.
Thank you very much. The chair will entertain a motion for.
I move that we pass Board Bill 108 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Is Alderwoman, I'm not sorry, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderman Kotar,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd, Alderman Narayan,
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans,
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys,
Aye.
Alderwoman Walker,
Aye.
Chair Davis,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
We have 8 aye votes.
Thank you. With your vote, with a due pass recommendation for Board Bill 108, I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to move on now to Board Bill 93.
Board Bill 93 introduced by Alderman James Page. An ordinance approving a redevelopment plan dated June 28, 2022 for the Cass Avenue, North 14th Street, O'Fallon Street, and Hogan Street area in the city of St. Louis. After finding that the area is blighted as defined in section 99.320 of the revised statutes of Missouri, 2016 as amended, the statute being sections 99.300 to 99.715 inclusive, and is blighted as defined in section 353.020 RSMO, finding that there shall be available to a 15-year tax abatement at 75% of the assessed value of the incremental improvements and pledging cooperation of the Board of Aldermen.
Thank you very much. Alderman Page, are you ready?
I am indeed, and good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, it is my honor to bring Board Bill number 93 before the HUD's committee. I ask favorable consideration and approval of Board Bill 93. With that, Madam Chair, I request that Mr. Neil Richardson and the SLDC team present the technical details of Board Bill number 93. And I also welcome Ms. Emily Bernstein to represent McCormick Barron Salazar, the developer. Back to you, Madam Chair.
All right, Mr. Richardson, move forward.
Yes, thank you again for this opportunity. I would like to pass it over to the Vice President of Economic Incentives, Zach Wilson, to provide the technical details for this project. Zach?
Thank you, President. This project has been going on for a while, as we probably all know. We originally scored this project in 2019, so please give us some grace on these older scorecards. They're not as pretty, no color. We get better with age, I would say. So we scored this. There's 5 projects, 5 phases of this project. We have 3 different scores: 3.75 out of 5, 4.25 out of 5, and 4.25 out of 5 again. This is a LIHTC project, so we do support 15 years of tax abatement. We usually do 15 at 90 and 10 at 90, 5 at 50. We do give that option of doing 15 at 75 as the backup, and McCord Barron chose the 15 at 75 for this project. The original blind study was done in 2019. It was not passed by the Board of Aldermen, so we did update the blind study in June 2022. It went for the Planning Commission. They supported it. I'm not going to go into too much details. I'll leave that to Emily, but we are very supportive of this project. And it'll be a huge asset for the 5th Ward and the surrounding areas.
Okay, we're going on to our next speaker.
Am I good to start?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Thank you all for having us today. I know you're all very well aware of the project. Preservation Square is the housing focus of the Choice Neighborhood Grant that the City of St. Louis was awarded from HUD in December of 2016. There are currently 675 mixed income housing units at Preservation Square. Or I should say there were before redevelopment began. There are, as Zach stated, 5 phases of redevelopment located on the site between Cass and O'Fallon and 14th and Hogan. The first phase is nearly complete and placing in service with 131 units. The next 2 phases are actively in construction, and the last 2 phases are looking to begin construction as early as next year. I just want to emphasize the mixed income nature of this project. There are about 30% market rate units that will be built, about 20% LIHTC units, and the remaining units on property receive some sort of project-based Section 8 subsidy through a HAP contract or our Section 9 housing units through the St. Louis Housing Authority. I have heard others speak this morning about rising costs and the state of the global economy currently. I just want to emphasize that this abatement value will, be an immense help with operating expenses, things like supportive services that are paid through the operating budget for, ongoing family support services on property, things like safety and security provision that not only serve Preservation Square, but the larger near north side. And I'm happy to answer any further questions.
Okay, I'm going back to you, Alderman Page.
Yes. Madam Chair and members of the committee.
Alderman Page, I'm sorry, we need your video.
Oh, it popped up.
It should be on.
Mhm.
Please confirm you can see me.
I can.
See, there's 2. Okay, I got you.
No, I have 2 instances. One is my video. The other is a large screen device that I can read the presentations more clearly.
I can see you, Alderman.
Got you.
Thank you very much. Continuing. Madam Chair and members of the committee, I wholeheartedly support Board Bill number 93 as part of a broader vision to provide affordable housing to market rate housing in the fabulous 5th/14th Ward. I personally participated in the opening day event, the grand opening, the ribbon cutting of the first phase of the project And I personally witnessed the changes that having affordable housing to mixed rate housing available in the neighborhood makes in the lives of our friends and neighbors in the ward. I request that the HUD's committee approve Board Bill number 93.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers for or against?
We have one speaker in opposition, Todd Irons L.
All right. Oh, okay. Is our speaker available?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'd like to swear you in if you don't have any objection.
No, ma'am.
Do you affirm that you will
We
tell the
can't
truth?
see his face, Madam Chair.
Oh,
There you go.
okay. Okay, sir, I want to go back to you with the swearing in.
Yes, ma'am. I affirm.
All right, thank you very much. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee for giving me the opportunity to speak against this bad tax policy. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Neil Richardson for the work he's doing over the SLDC with his economic environment and policies that he got planned for the city. But ultimately, this property belongs to McCormick & Burns Salazar, one of the country's most rich real estate developers who own property all over the country that cash flow in the millions of dollars. And I think it's absolutely devastating to think about transferring our children's educational resources to these wealthy, rich real estate developers who don't need it. Though I do understand there are times where there are projects that need to be incentivized, but this is not one of them. A 15-year tax abatement given to this rich organization means that millions of dollars of our children's education resources would not go to them, especially our children in North St. Louis. This process helped us to send their children to Harvard and Princeton and Yale, while our children end up in the penitentiary. 80% of the young people that's locked up today is because of lack of education and lack of educational resources. We take their money and we don't educate them, then we turn around and complain about how they're acting in the streets. The city has already given them much resources, CDA gave them $10 million, SLDC gave them $5 million, HUD gave them $25 million. They got an application for the state for $1.2 million. They stand to make millions of dollars of development fee on their own property, with no concessions, no benefit agreement, what they gonna do for the surrounding community. Jefferson School look horrible. And we talked about giving them a 15-year tax abatement where our children's money would be lost in this process. Please do not support this bill. It is wrong. These are rich people. It's been documented in the St. Louis, it's been documented in the Post-Dispatch that Mr. Carl Lane, who's the chairman of Urban Strategies, the nonprofit organization McCormick & Burns, sold his shares to Goldman Sachs, one of the world's richest financial institutions. The third is a partner in McCormick & Burns. Go to them. Why we gotta take our babies' money and give it to these rich people while we continue to suffer? Please do not support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I wanted to go back to Alderman Page quickly before we go to the committee.
Yes, I'm going to renew my request that the HUD's committee approve Board Bill 93. And with that, let's proceed to the committee.
Committee for questions, Alderman Cohen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had the opportunity to ask questions of the developer and other parties during the Planning Commission meeting. I just, this is obviously, important from the perspective of being able to provide affordable housing. I think it's important to reiterate that with the LIHTC tax credits, it's actually a kind of requirement, if you will, for a local match for tax abatements to be provided in order for them to qualify for the LIHTC dollars that are part of this redevelopment project. So, it's a pretty standard practice to be able to do that. I expressed my frustration, I think, at the Planning Commission in terms of the quality of housing. Like these weren't built that long ago. These are not historic structures. They were built, 20, 30 years ago. And it seems to be a habit that we get into, with certain low income projects where we only build them for so long with a certain lifespan associated with them. And then, here we are a couple decades later needing to basically, redesign, rebuild, and invest more public money into the same project that we already did. So that being said, it's a approved project by the state from a LIHTC perspective. It's a necessity in terms of being able to provide affordable housing within our communities. And with that, I kind of reserve the balance of my time for other folks.
Thank you very much. Alderman Kotar.
No questions.
Alderwoman Boyd.
I don't have questions. I just have a comment. I appreciate Alderman Cone and others that, are discussing about these development projects. But I want people to pay attention because SLDC has taken that organization or department in a whole nother direction. And so I think they hear what you all are saying. And I know it's going to take time to get the city where it needs to be, because what people have to understand, this is years of discrimination for the North Quarter and other areas south that had not been serviced. And so, I guess I'm at an age now, you just be patient. And so I'm waiting and I'm excited because I see that Mr. Richardson and others in SLDC are taking us to a place where we never been before. We're getting stuff that we never had before. And so I just want to say, everybody is beating up and saying, we shouldn't do projects, we shouldn't. But at the end of the day, the city has to keep growing. We have to keep moving, because between the people leaving the city and the police leaving the city, we have to build our city to make it attractive to people to be here. And so I just want people to take that in consideration, and I get it. Everybody, we can't always hit the mark. We're not always on point. But when I see a department that's trying to change the norm that we have had to deal with and fight and scratch for, I applaud them, because they didn't have to come in like that. So, that's all I have. I just want people to look at the changes that we have started to go through. And it's going to be a while, because when you have 20 years of no changes and the same old business, and you start changing, and it's going to take a while for us to get to where we need to be. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Alderman Orion.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I also share a lot of the alderman from the 25th concerns with this. I think ultimately it's a good project. It's just frustrating that we're having to go back and use public funds again, just a short period of time down the road. I wish that in the future we could just get things like this done right the first time, so that we didn't have to revisit them a short period of time later and use public funds again. But the affordable housing aspect of this project kind of puts it over the hump for me. That's all I have. Thank you.
Alderwoman Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're muted. There you go.
Oh, I'm sorry. As I was saying, I have no questions, just a comment. And that is that I piggyback off of what Alderwoman Boyd's comments were. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Alderwoman Keys.
Thank you, Chairwoman Davis. I don't have any comments or questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Walker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no comments or questions at this time.
Thank you very much. I'm just gonna give a few highlights on that development there. It was actually built over 40 years ago. And I only know that because my sister lived there. And I watched it through the years, even after she moved, as we went through different maintenance companies, and they didn't necessarily care for that development as it should have been. But to see the reinvestment there is good, because we do need those units there. And there's so many people there that have lived there for years, and they deserve a better place to live. And I'm looking forward to the completion of this. I know it has a number of phases, but we do incentivize developments like this periodically, usually every 10 to 15 years. There is some renovation done to LIHTC properties. I've been through this for the last, I want to say 30 years of seeing this done, and it's needed. So why let something dilapidate to the end and it doesn't have residency living in quality situations? And so I will end my comments and go back to Alderman Page.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate your bringing up the point, because I also know that the old O'Fallon Place, as it was called, was built over 40 years ago. And normal building materials have a limited lifespan. And that lifespan can be shortened when people are constantly cycling in and out of it in rental situations. So I have no qualms at all about the old O'Fallon Place being completely renovated, rebuilt in 5 phases, if I remember correctly, over time. So I think that is a proper use of public funds to provide not only affordable housing, but as well other rates of housing, mixed use housing. O'Fallon Place was not mixed use housing, if you remember.
Originally not.
It was not. So we have made a step forward in providing a variety of categories of housing on that same space that used to be O'Fallon Place. So with that, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I renew my recommendation that the HUD's committee approve Board Bill number 93.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt Board Bill 93 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved and second to adopt Board Bill 93. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Cone. Alderman Kotar.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys.
Aye.
Alderwoman Walker.
Aye.
Chair Davis.
Aye.
Alderman Cone. We have 7 aye votes.
Thank you. With your vote, you have approved the due pass recommendation for Board Bill 93. Okay. Our next is Board Bill 113, and Alderman Gross.
Did you want me to read it, Chair Davis?
Yes, you will. I just want to get his attention and get him on board.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm on.
Good. So would you please read the preamble for us?
Board Bill number 113, introduced by Alderman Michael Gross. An ordinance approving a redevelopment plan dated June 28, 2022 for 490 North Kings Highway Boulevard and 4952 through 4956 McPherson Avenue in the city of St. Louis. After finding that the area is blighted as defined in section 99.320 of the revised statutes of Missouri 2016 as amended, the statute being sections 99.300 to 99.715 inclusive. Finding that there shall be available a 10-year tax abatement, 5 at 90% followed by 5 at 75%, and pledging cooperation of the Board of Aldermen.
Okay. Please move forward, Alderman Gross.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm here today to ask for your favorable consideration on a due pass resolution on Board Bill 13. Board Bill 13 is basically redeveloping the Reliance Automotive Building on the corner of Kings Highway and McPherson. I'm sure Zach and his team will tell you more, but this building's been vacant for a long time. This hasn't been doing anything for the community, hasn't been generating any revenues, and it's just been there for decades, really. And I share frustrations for some folks about giving tax abatements because I live just a few blocks away from this building and I pay my full share of taxes, and so I certainly understand the frustration. I do think, though, that a couple things on this project which are helpful. I think we have to acknowledge the fact that when projects are in the historic district, that the city really is putting a whole bunch of extra costs and requirements on folks to develop new housing. And I think that this housing, that this project or a project like this probably could have been done a long time ago if we'd let them demolish the garage that was there and build housing that developers want to. But instead, it's important for members of our community to uphold these historic standards. So we do kind of add these extra requirements and extra costs and extra things that's passed on to developers. So I'm cognizant of the fact that there have been proposals that have come before that have not worked. I mean, the city even put an RFP on this property. I think maybe Zach will tell you more about it, but this developer really has come in and has done the work to make sure that he can make a project comply with our historic standards. He's been back and forth with the Central West End Community Development Organization numerous times, revising stuff. I think he's also been back and forth with Cultural Resources, and they've made suggestions and he's made changes to get approval from there. So, and then the other thing I would say is, the developer, this bill is for 90% for 5 years, 75% for the additional years. There is a affordable housing component set aside, which Zach can tell you about. But then the other thing is, the developer has pledged to contribute $150,000 to infrastructure and Kings Highway safety and pedestrian. And kind of how that came about for members of the board is, we had a traffic study done 28th Ward along with the 18th Ward, where really from Lindell to Martin Luther King, the city's already done this commission to traffic study, and I was really trying to get it funded at the beginning of the summer because it was a couple $1 million and my ward capital doesn't even touch that. But since then, that project is on the ARPA list to get funding, but through community engagement sessions and certain things that we've gone through, we've heard that the residents really want to see more out of that project and want some additional changes. So this money coming from this developer, the contribution, I think, is really helpful for the area, and I was really happy to see the developer be happy to contribute it. So No, I understand that this is on Kings Highway in the Central West End. It's in the Central Corridor. And people are hesitant about tax abatement in that area. But, you know, I think looking at this particular project, I think it's clear looking at the history of the past few decades that nothing's going to happen at this site unless we give it some help. Nothing has happened. Given the fact that developers worked hard to make a project that complies with what we want to see in the spot, and the fact that he's contributing to improve traffic and pedestrian safety, which our city desperately needs, I'm asking for your favorable consideration.
Okay, so would we like to now have SLDC give their presentation on this project?
Yes, we would like to definitely thank you again, Madam Chair. And also want to thank Alderman Grass for his hard work of partnering with the development team and working with SLDC to ensure that this project works best for the community overall. And we address the historical nature of the neighborhood and its integrity. And he has, again, been a great representative of the community, as SLDC has been able to negotiate directly with the developer on this transaction. And his role was to continue to raise up the concerns of the residents to ensure that we met the financial and the public benefit of the city. So I just want to make that statement as Zach begins the presentation.
Thank you, President. Again, Alderman Gross was correct. We did put an RFP out for this some years ago. We've had many people kind of kick the tires on this building through the years. They take a look, they ask some questions, they meet with the neighborhood, and they kind of disappear. So that's the requirements for the historic district, the requirements for the neighborhood, and some are high bars. So to do this building justice, we're pretty excited about this type of construction at this site. The total construction cost is $37 million. It's 118 units. 12 of them will be 80% AMI. Within that building is 127 parking spaces. Basically, what they're doing is building a new addition on top of the existing building. We are proposing 5 years at 90, 5 years at 75, a total of 10 years. Like Alderman Grouse said, it'll be $150,000 contribution to infrastructure along North Kings Highway. We see that as a possible incentive type of tool to be used on future projects moving forward also. There'll be 4 full-time jobs at average wage of $50,000, 2 part-time jobs at $40,000. Total hard cost of $30 million. Minority participation should be at $7.2 million. Women-owned participation should be at $3.3 million. Overall fiscal benefits to the schools will be 2.8 over 20 years, 380,000 over 10 years, and fiscal benefit to the city will be 726,000, and 20 years would be $2 million. The project scores 3.25 of 5. Sorry, my eyes are going. I can't see the screen very well. I apologize for that. But we're happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. And so is the developer available?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'd like to swear you in if you don't mind. Do
Absolutely.
you affirm? Okay. Do you affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Would you go ahead and make your presentation?
Yes, let me share screens real quickly here. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the SLDC and all the members of the HUD's committee for your time and consideration today. I know this has been a lengthy meeting, so I'll try to get through this pretty quickly. And really, Alderman Gross did a great job kind of pitching some of the challenges that we've faced with this site. As you can see in this top image, this is the existing Reliance Automotive building, which has sat vacant for quite some time. It was actually built in 2 different phases in the 1920s and then an addition built on in the 1950s. has always had some kind of automotive tie. It was originally a Buick dealership, and then most recently was an auto repair mechanic shop, which many of us have probably visited throughout the years before it closed. As Alderman Gratz mentioned, we are in a historic district, being at the Four Holy Corners in the Central West End, which really prohibits us from demolishing this site, which has presented a lot of challenges, I think, on prior plans and with prior developers. It leaves your head a little bit confused when you start to add up some of the costs to retrofit and structurally enhance this building to be able to get it to its highest and best use. And without being able to tear it down and just have a vacant site and kind of a blank canvas to start from. I did want to note that although we are required to follow those some of those historic guidelines due to where we are in this intersection, we are not receiving any historic tax credits on a federal or state level for this project. Really the enhancement that Zach mentioned, which I'll show a few images of in a moment, is just too much of a new addition for the building to really qualify and really be fruitful to go after that type of incentive on the structure below. So although we are keeping it and having to spend a lot of money enhancing it, we are not able to get federal and state historic credits on the site. But basically, as Zach mentioned, our plan is to take the existing building, stabilize it, perform interior demolition and abatement, which we've already commenced work on, and then utilize it as a parking structure, which again, it's always been used for that previously. We've also acquired some land immediately to the east, which we will be building a new 2-story concrete parking structure. So that'll be the same height as the existing, and those two structures will be connected. And then we'll be building 5 stories of residential on top. So it's almost like a building floating on top of the existing building, if you will. That ends up giving us approximately 120 apartment units, mostly 1-bedrooms and studios, as well as approximately 120 parking spaces in the garage below. So these are just some further images of what that building looks like looking down Kings Highway. Really, we see this as a gateway into the Central West End that has been just vacant and long time ignored. This, as well as church across McPherson, that's been proposed for some redevelopment as well. But we really see this corner as in desperate need of being activated. There's been several accidents along this intersection. It's a very hard blind turn, and so we'd really like to kind of open this up. And again, have this be a nice gateway into the Central West End. These are just some more images of the back side of the building. This building is in very close proximity to the Racquet Club next to us along Kings Highway. There have been some logistical challenges that they've had with a parking lot that we currently own behind their building. We're actually going to be kind of fixing and connecting their site to their parking lot below and shaving off a piece of our land to be able to accommodate that and open up the alley a little bit better behind where their location is. And then the only other thing I wanted to comment on, just from a scoring and financial perspective, which is probably relevant to other projects as well, but this has been worked on for quite some time with SLDC. And, since we started those dialogues, I would say interest rates have probably gone up 200 to 300 basis points. So, the need for assistance here and this project kind of getting on life support through construction costs and rising rates has just continued to amplify. So I just wanted to touch on that as well. But I'm here for any questions, and again, appreciate your consideration.
I thank you very much for your presentation. I'm going to come back to you, Alderman Gross, if you'd like to add something before I go to the committee for questions.
Nothing further for me. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers for or against this project?
Yes, we have in opposition, Daniel Pate, Brittany Kiefer, and Jerry Conley.
Okay. So those are the 3. Why don't I get them first before I go to the committee? So Daniel Pate is listed first. You've already been sworn in, sir. Go ahead and make your comments.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate the time again for the committee. I'll try to be super brief because everybody's tired. This project is tough. It's an amazing location. The city knew about the location and the difficulty of doing a project here when it came up with the strategic land use plan, though, and it did pick the specialty mixed use area land use code, which is a really high revenue bar because this is a really prime corner of real estate. This project doesn't ever reach the sustainable revenue target that is laid out in the financial analysis model, which is why it scores below what one would normally consider a passing grade. I've heard before that there is no pass or fail on this, and if there is no pass or fail, then why does it generate a score? These typically you're looking for 70% or above, which is going to be about 28 points, I think it is, out of 40, that it produces enough revenue to warrant subsidies. It's just difficult because we're almost better off waiting, because this project will use a lot of resources and not pay its full share in. The strategic land use plan was designed to balance the revenue of the city as a whole. And I don't know that anybody's accounted for, underutilization of specific land use codes and trying to make up for that revenue somewhere else. That's one thing that I think we should really take a look at, is how much can we abate before we start impeding our ability to pick up trash and fill potholes. I would like to see, if we could, the 80% workforce housing and the $150,000, take that out of the budget and then drop the abatement percentage so this can pay more of its fair share. The way the ratio is $2.8 million is the amount of the incentive on this that the developer avoids paying, and $150,000 for a traffic study. I will gladly kick in $150 if I can get $2,800 abated of my real property taxes. I'd like to just throw that out there. That's pretty much all I have. The way that we get SLDC to make the changes that they're talking about making is by nudging them along. And this committee is the legislative body and could do that by dictating minimums for jobs produced, setting lower maximums on the abatement, and also putting in every 2 or 3 year review period of how many jobs did it produce, what's the rental amount and the revenue, and putting a clawback for the abatement ends if it's sold over a certain price. I think we need to do that to protect the interests of our school kids. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I believe Mr. Connolly was listed next on this one.
Brittany Kiefer.
Oh, Brittany. Okay, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you so much again for being able to speak. I understand the purpose of like these blighting studies and everything, but I do think it's really problematic to consider this in this kind of prime real estate when, this corner is less than a quarter mile from Del Mar, where we have extreme conditions of like, strife and, real blight in our community. And so I just also, I was happy to hear that, affordable housing is being considered. And I understand like the complicated nature of this. I'm in this neighborhood and local to this building, and I love it. And I want to keep it historic and retaining the character of our community. But I think like considering, 10% of units at 80% AMI isn't even really considered the kind of like affordable housing that we need to kind of be considering to address the disparity that exists between north and south of Del Mar in this community. And so I'm just also concerned in general, as I'm learning a lot about how the SLDC and we're dealing with these development projects in St. Louis, as a result of, discriminatory housing policies throughout our past, is that if we continue to subsidize corporate development, is this, in these kinds of neighborhoods, in kind of high value Central West End property, are we only really kind of continuing our legacy that has been created by like racial covenants and redlining and kind of inequitably developing in our city and not cashing in on the opportunity to do the things for those communities that they really need, like city services and public schools. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Connolly?
I do not see Mr. Connolly logged in anymore.
Okay, then we shall move forward. Let's start with the committee for questions. And Alderman Cohen. Alderman Cohen. Okay, we can come back. Alderman Kotar.
Madam Chair, I'm abstaining on this matter. My firm is involved.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman Boyd.
Madam Chair, I have no questions, and I think the alderman was very informative on his project, so thank you very much.
Okay. Alderman Narayan.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions other than that. That building brings back memories because I used to have an old beetle bug that I used to take there to be worked on. So the Reliance building, it brings back memories, and I have no further questions.
All right, thank you. That's funny.
Statement.
Okay. Alderwoman Keys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions. I am excited to see this project come into fruition. It's looking beautiful at this point, but I can imagine how grand it'll be once it is completed.
Thank you. Alderwoman Walker.
I have no questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right. I just want to give a couple of comments. I grew up in that neighborhood just a few blocks away. My dad used to take his cars there, and to see that building come back to life and with it having such a futuristic appearance, although maintaining the historic value to the building, is quite ingenious. And so I thank the developer for taking the time, for having the interest, and most especially knowing and understanding the challenges with financing and where you will be probably next year, taking more loss on this project. So as we move forward in the development process with SLDC, just sitting here today, I have witnessed a number of different approaches for projects that allow for that particular project in that particular area to provide additional incentives and resources for that community. So I thank you, SLDC, for how you're moving forward. I'd like to go back to you, Alderman Gross, to close, please.
Thank you, everybody. I guess I don't really have anything further to say. I will just again renew my ask for a do pass resolution on this bill.
Okay. The chair accepts a motion.
Second.
The chair accepts a motion for Board Bill 113.
I make a motion to accept Board Bill 113.
Okay. Are you? It's been moved and second for Board Bill 113 for a due pass recommendation. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Cone. Alderman Kotar.
Abstain.
Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans,
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys,
Aye.
Alderwoman Walker,
Aye.
Chair Davis,
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
Present.
Okay.
We have one present, 6 aye votes, and 1 abstain.
All right, thank you. Based on your vote, you have passed Board Bill 113 with a due pass recommendation. Oh,
Thank you.
congratulations, Alderman Gross. This is your first project, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
exciting. Great,
Appreciate
great.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Happy it worked.
Thank you all.
Thank
We
you,
don't want to be
everybody.
the first one to fail, but yeah, thank you.
Okay, all right. So now we'll go to Board Bill 104. And that is Alderwoman Walker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me first apologize. And to the chair and the committee, I went out and took a tour of our new soccer stadium on Monday, and apparently I did not dress appropriately because I have a cold now.
Well, everybody's got a cold right now because of the weather changing. So let's have our clerk read the preamble for you, and then I'll let you present.
Board Bill number 104, introduced by Alderwoman Norma Walker, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan dated June 28, 2022 for the 3401 Goodfellow Boulevard area in the city of St. Louis. After finding that the area is blighted as defined in section 99.320 of the revised statutes of Missouri 2016 as amended. The statute beginning sections 99.300 to 99.715 inclusive, and is blighted as is blighted as defined in section 353.020 RSMO, finding that there shall be available 15 years of tax abatement, 10 years based on 95% of the assessed value of the incremental improvements, and followed by 5 years based on 50% of the assessed value of the incremental improvements, and pledging cooperation of the Board of Aldermen.
Thank you. Alderwoman Walker.
As the clerk stated, Madam Chair and the committee, this is 3401 Goodfellow. It's the Hillsville Apartments, and it's located in the Wells Goodfellow neighborhood. This apartment complex consists of 11 residential buildings with 146 2 to 3 bedroom units, and they estimate the renovation cost to be around 30.5 million. This place needs help. The present people are not doing anything or very minimum to repairs or for safety of the people that live there. You know, you always got problems, always got police being called there. So we welcome this development in the 22nd Ward. We welcome this rehab, and I ask the committee for a favorable consideration with this bill. And I have SLDC and Steel Properties Justin Unger here to represent and share any information and answer any questions that the committee may have.
All right, let's go with the SLDC presentation first.
I would like to thank you again, Madam Chair. You say that, might as well put that on repeat.
I know.
And then Alderwoman Walker, thank you for that thorough representation of the current state of that development and articulating how economic development activity and the incentives that we provide as a city can address not only the economic outcomes, but some of the public safety and crime concerns in the neighborhood as well, and appreciate your representation and willingness to elevate the voices of your constituents to address these matters. So thank you for that, Alderwoman Walker. So I'll pass it over to, again, Vice President Zach. You earned your money today, sir. So I'll pass it back to you for the presentation.
Thank you, President. Hillsville Apartments, we're very excited about this project because it's a apartment complex that has needed investment for many, many years. It received LIHTC tax credits from the state of Missouri, so we're offering 15 years of tax abatement. There's a typo on these slides. It should be 10 at 95, 5 followed by 5 at 50. The property was built in 1967. It's 146 units, which are 2 to 3 bedrooms, and the city definitely needs 3-bedroom LIHTC units out there. So this is a huge win for us, win for the city also. 5 new jobs will be created at an annual salary of $46,000. The overall, the total hard cost was $14.3 million. Minority firms should receive $3.4 million in construction contracts. Women-owned firms should receive $1.6 million worth of contracts. So another thing the developer can go further into, we focused a lot of this in the redevelopment plan on the greenery, the green space around the apartments. Is spelled out in the redevelopment plan. Lighting and security also is spelled out in the redevelopment plan. So that was voiced to us from the neighborhood and the residents that that's something they needed and wanted. So that's spelled out if you go into urban design standards in the plan. And it scores 4.25 out of 5. I'll let the developer go into a little more detail on everything else. Thank you.
Okay. So now let's have the presentation from the developer. May I please swear you in?
Of course.
Do you affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Justin Unger, and I do.
Thank you. You may start, sir.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to say thank you to Alderwoman Walker and her new appointment for supporting this project and allowing us to come meet with her in the community at the 22nd ward meeting. Thank you, Madam Chair, and the entire HUD-Z board, as well as Zach and the SLDC staff for their help throughout this process. I'll keep it pretty quick here with a brief presentation, if you can allow me to share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you can see that.
No,
not yet.
Can't see it.
Okay. Let me apologies. Okay, let's try this again. How about now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'll keep it fairly quick here. So, you know, as Alderman mentioned, Hillville Apartments is an existing apartment complex. It's a project-based Section 8 complex currently, in that has a HAP contract subsidizing 95% of the units, or 138 of the 146 units. What that means is that, you know, existing housing is already provided for residents that don't pay more than 30% of their adjusted income towards rent. So that will remain unchanged as a result of our rehab and our acquisition. We'll also just be placing tax credits on the property through our tax credit award from MHDC. That will further designate, you know, 100% of the units as low income. 22 of the units will be set aside for residents at or below 20% AMI. And the remaining 124 units would be at or below 60% AMI, although the HAP contract restricts their income further, and generally they're lower income than that already. So I really wanted to just kind of highlight the existing condition. These photos are included in the board bill, but I thought I'd share them with the committee. These are just some photos of the existing conditions of the apartments. As a little background, my firm has actually been pursuing this project since 2015. We unfortunately weren't able to get the award and structure the deal in the way it worked with MHDC for the tax credits until this year. So we're really excited. I would say, unfortunately, in that 7-year time span, the project has definitely deteriorated further. And the living conditions, unfortunately, for these residents have gotten even worse. The only good thing about it is it's allowed us time to really think about a thorough development plan for the rehab of the units, which includes, as Zach mentioned, Alderwoman mentioned, extensive security plan. So These are just some typical before and after photos of apartments. There's an example of a project in Dallas we completed. The finishes on the interior will be very similar. 100% rehab of the existing units, flooring, cabinets, countertops, new bathroom fixtures, new appliances. So really everything is going to be touched in the unit. Just at a high level, what my firm does is we specialize in acquisition and preservation of project Section 8 communities across the country, really with our focus to improve the quality of life for the residents for the long term. We're an affiliated property management company and developer, so we will self-manage the property. Through the LIHTC award, the properties will be kept at low income for a period of 30 years at least. And we'll, at least be managing them and holding them likely for the first 15-year period of the tax credit restrictions, but certainly more likely longer. In addition, we have pretty significant energy efficiency improvements in this project. Energy Star appliances, new windows, new HVAC systems, and universal design features, including ADA improvements as well. Really our goal hopefully would to help, be that this project would help spur future investment in the ward. It's a $15 million renovation, which is over $100,000 per low income unit there. It's actually one of the largest per unit projects we've completed to date. In addition to our rehab, we'll also be providing on-site services for the residents. I'll go into this in a little bit, but we'll be building a new community building on site, which will include all the resident offices, an office for the service coordinator, and also a new laundry facility and recreational area. As mentioned, we also have comprehensive physical security upgrades, as well as we'll be planning to provide on-site physical security guards at a very minimum during the construction period. We also are going to implement 24/7 monitored cameras at the property that we've had a lot of success with in our other communities, really helping provide security and oversight remotely to the properties and coordinating with PD in the events that incidents occur. This is just an image of the current site. I included this because I do want to point out that currently the city actually owns Selber Court. We're in the process of privatizing that through the alley vacation process so that we can secure this side of Goodfellow Boulevard, as well as Hamilton Avenue, to control access as part of our security plan.
Very good.
This is just an image of the site, just to give you an idea. This is where the new community building will go. And then this is just a quick picture of the elevations and then the floor plans from our design architect for the new community building. So these are the laundry facilities, recreation area, computer lab for the residents, service coordinator office, and then leasing offices, as well as a kitchen. As I mentioned briefly, through our award with MHDC, we've also engaged Portfolio Resident Services to provide on-site community services for the residents at no less than 50 hours a month. Also, through our partnership with our state tax credit investor, their local nonprofit, Horizon Housing Foundation, will provide on-site services. Typically, once that new community building is built, they'll go out and interview with the residents to best determine, what services fit them most. This is kind of an example of what we've found to be good services at other family sites, but ultimately we'll get the resident input to gauge, what best fits their needs based on the community. This is just the project affordability, as I touched on before. It's a 100% affordable project with some further AMI restrictions for the set-asides to really serve the lowest income residents in this community as a result of the tax credit award. So I think I've touched on most of this, but just a high-level overview of kind of our renovation scope and budget for the project. And from there, I'd open it up for questions. Thank you very much.
Wow, I like that. Okay, so we've had SLDC and the developer. Do we have anybody who's speaking for or against this project?
We have no speakers for or against.
Very good. So we can go straight to the committee. Alderman Cohen.
No questions.
Okay. Alderman Kotar.
No questions.
Alderwoman Boyd. I think she had to leave. Okay. Alderman Naran.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Evans.
No questions, Madam Chair, but I do have a comment.
Okay.
I can remember when those apartments were pristine. I had friends that lived in those apartments. So it saddened me when I saw the disarray that they had fallen into. So I welcome the development. I can't wait until it puts the developers put their touch to bringing our community back to the beautiful area that it used to be in.
All right,
That's all I
thank
have to
you.
say.
Thank you. Alderwoman Keys?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like Alderwoman Fourth Ward, Dwayne Evans said, I had a family member who used to live there, and I always enjoyed going to visit. But conversely, over the years, when I became a child abuse investigator, I had several cases in that complex as well. And so this is a truly, truly exciting and sorely needed for that area of the city to have some real meaningful development with some good wraparound services to help residents to have a real quality of life. And so this is very exciting. Congratulations, Norma, and go team.
All right, thank you. So I just got a couple of comments. One for the developer, because you answered all the questions. And I was really concerned as I was thinking about that project because I knew about the traffic pattern there, which brought crime in and out of that from too many different directions. So I'm happy to see what you're doing. I'm also happy to hear that you're providing the appropriate services there on site where people can really hopefully improve their quality of life and have some upward mobility. This is one of those things where, and we just talked about this last night at the St. Louis Public Schools citywide conference. We need to know and partnership with all of the complexes that provide true social services and or have community centers so that all of us can provide some services there. And it makes it easier for people to improve their quality of life. So I'm very happy to see that as well. Alderwoman Walker.
Just want to thank SDLC and Justin of Steel Properties for their excellent presentation. And I look forward to this project, seeing it start and seeing it finish. So thank you.
All right. First of all, congratulations to you. This is your first project.
Yes, ma'am.
So how exciting. Madam Clerk, please. Oh, wait a minute. The chair accepts a motion to approve Board Bill 104.
I move that we
adopt Board Bill 104 with a due pass recommendation.
All right,
second.
thank you. It's been moved and second. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Previous roll? Or actually, objection. Sorry, I withdraw my motion.
Okay. Board Bill, I'm sorry. Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderman Kotar.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys.
Aye.
Alderwoman Walker.
Aye.
Chair Davis.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd. We have 7 aye votes.
All right, thank you. You have voted to provide a past due recommendation to Board Bill 104. Again, congratulations, Alderwoman Walker, and to the SLDC staff and the developer. Make sure that we are able to spread the word. North St. Louis is open for business and everybody can come and be creative. All right.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. We've ended our board bills that need to be heard today, and I thank everybody for their longevity in this committee meeting. We have a few items that we need to address here. We don't have any resolutions that we need to look at. For committee discussion, is there anything that anybody wanted to bring up today? Okay. For me, I am absent of any additional discussion. So I'd like to, everybody was present at some point.
Yes, ma'am. We have all members were present.
That's right. So we don't have to excuse anyone. And I move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Second.
Any opposed to adjourning? You'll be here by yourself. Okay. Okay, hearing none, I thank everybody for being so attentive, and we got a lot of good work done. And I think we put a lot of good conversation out there for us to consider for the future. And that's what it's all about. You can't do everything at once. You can't put the kitchen sink in a board bill. It doesn't belong there. And I think as we continue to move forward, preferably we can educate our public so that they will understand what a board bill, what the tool is used for, and what actually goes in it and what actually goes in contracts. So thank you. Be blessed. Be safe.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.